Good Tuesday morning. What I used to call Hurley-Burleyites, but are now cursive political lights. We're here. Jenni Byrne.
Gotta work on that. Gotta work on that.
Gotta work on that, yeah. Cursors. That could work. Cursors. Nick Taylor-Vasey, how are you, brother?
I'm good. How are you?
Yeah, I'm all right.
I'm sleeping like more than 5 hours now, which is pretty good for me.
Yeah, well, we're still getting up early, so you must be going to bed early.
Yeah, I mean, time doesn't matter anymore. But anyway, I feel fresh.
Had you pegged as a nighttime vigilante, Nick, I thought you might be scouring the streets and scrubbing crime out of your part of Toronto.
Well, you get the Politico playbook out at 6 a.m. every morning. So you're obviously working late into the night. And that's your plug, people. Check out the Politico playbook today. Lots of information. Nick's going to give us a highlight. What do you got, Nick?
So you guys talk about EKOS on this podcast, which I think is great. And I talk about Abacus every so often because we have a fun little relationship with David Coletto and Abacus for the campaign. And he's got a new poll out today. And it's one of those things we like to say is first in playbook, which makes us feel really important. But we can talk a bit about the leadership numbers that he has, which are, I think, really interesting in one way and also really, really not interesting in another. So,
well, let's start with the not interesting part.
Poll numbers. Come on, bring it on, brother. Bring it on.
So,
there you go.
Give us the not interesting, man. Let's give people the not interesting. Kick it off.
Well, it's like simultaneously these things. So Trudeau's positives and negatives. Trudeau's 40% positive, 43% negative. Jagmeet Singh is 44% positive, 26% negative. So his positive numbers are rising. His negatives are rising a little bit. And Aaron O'Toole is 29 negative, 42 positive. So in 2 weeks, he's jumped 9 points on his positives. His negatives are holding steady at 42. And Coletto also asked about the desire for change in government, and 48% definitely want change, which is 10 points higher than it was a couple of months ago, long before the election call. But of course, Coletto points out, and anybody who really, anybody who has this sort of the graphs from 2019 by their side knows that these numbers are kind of 2019 numbers. The number of people who definitely wanted change in 2019 on election day was 52%. So that's the uninteresting thing, I guess, if you're someone like me who really likes action.
In 2014, when Kathleen Wynne won a majority government, 70% of Ontarians thought it was time for a different party to take office, including 25% of Liberals. So doesn't mean you can't win with big time for a change number.
Did you know, guys, that in that same poll, they surveyed attitudes with respect to podcasts, and our positives are at 83%, and our negatives are at Paul Wells. So I think that's pretty good. Beat that, Mansbridge.
So who's been moving in this? According to Abacus, who's been moving? O'Toole's positives are up. Singh's positives are up. What's happening to Trudeau?
He's flat. The negatives are up very, very slightly, and the positives are up very, very slightly this week, but they've kind of been dancing with each other for the last forever.
Okay. And who's got a big tour event today that's going to change everything?
Well, Aaron O'Toole. He is at the Westin Hotel in Ottawa, which you might know is where he's from. He's making an announcement.
What's their pet policy? At the Westin, can you bring dogs into the cats? Anything like that?
Sir, you'll have to leave your bird in the car. I'm afraid you can't bring that bird in here.
If only we recorded this just a little bit later in the morning, we'd know what he was going to say. Because every morning, just before 7 a.m., he'll post what he's going to talk about. But then later in the day, he's doing a town hall with Nova Scotians, which is a virtual town hall and isn't super exciting for people like us to watch, but. It's with Nova Scotia, which is a place that may have some movement these days. So useful for him.
Hey, Jenny, did they use these town halls to collect data?
I assume that's what they're like. I assume that's what they're doing. I don't think that I'm assuming they are asking people that are actually on the town halls. I've watched a couple of them, but I've watched them kind of on YouTube Live. I'm assuming when they're going to be asking policy questions, they're going to be saying, Are you more likely to support Aaron? Are you a conservative voter? And it's another data point. I wouldn't, if I were them, I wouldn't if my one point of contact was someone on a town hall, a tele town hall saying, I'm going to support the Conservative Party. I think you've mined for data, and you can go back and check and see if you can go back and reconfirm and reach out to that voter, is what I assume,
right.
What I assume they're doing. Just otherwise, why are you doing, why would you be doing it?
Right.
Where's Trudeau today, Nick? Is he going to be back in Ontario?
Trudeau's in Canada. He's in Canada Carleton today. The itinerary for the day went out at 5:58 a.m. And yes, you do see it in the playbook, which went out 2 minutes later. So that's what I was doing at 5:58.
That is impressive.
You got it busted, bitch. You are a killer.
And Jagmeet Singh's out west. He's back in Coquitlam, BC. So that's Port Moody, Coquitlam. It's a riding they appear to really want. It's a second visit there of the campaign. And the last thing I'll say is that Singh's itinerary says that he's going back to his own campaign office, which is rare that he's going to an NDP riding. He's going to his own. But he's going for a Burma shave. And when I heard Burma shave, I was like, well, I've never heard of that as a political term. And I looked it up.
Burma shave signs. That's an old thing, man.
Oh,
You're standing on the street.
It's one of the first things you do with in politics is drag someone out to a Burma shave.
Yeah. So
and
as
people
you know,
honk or yell at you as they drive by, right?
Yeah. So he's doing that at his campaign office. And the only Burma shave signs I've ever seen are on Route 66. So how exciting for voters in Burnaby South that they get their very own example.
They're fun.
Orange
my guess is he's doing a rah-rah for his local volunteers while he's out there. They'll do a Burma shave in rush hour, and then they'll do some doors, and it's his flying the flag in his own campaign.
That sounds about right, because that's timing works out exactly with his itinerary.
It's almost like she's
run
Toronto
Star exposes this morning the team of crack criminal masterminds that are behind the protests at the Trudeau rallies.
Yes, yeah. The screenshots of their WhatsApp group.
Yeah, exactly. Turns out they've got sources in the media. Who would have thought?
It's not me, guys. I gotta go. I'm related.
All right, Nick. Go before you're in trouble.
See you guys.
Right.
David.
All right,
overnight, we know that Frank, our pal Frank Graves from EKOS, Frank is he's an avid late night tweeter. Sounds
Frank's
dirty.
riding the roller coaster.
Yeah, it sounds dirty, but he was all wound up last night on Twitter at like 1:30 in the morning. So I'm curious to see what he's got. He's talking big liberal comeback.
Well, the 4-day roll up. So that would be Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday. Says 36 conservative, 31 liberal, 18 NDP. His 3-day roll up says, or did I read that wrong? Wait a second. Holy Christ. No. Yeah, wait a second. 3-day roll up says 36, 31. 4-day roll-up says 36-30. Both of them, however, show the Liberals back into the lead in Ontario by 6 or 7 points.
And 7 points is what Abacus, I think, had them at this morning as well, and what they released.
Right.
In Ontario.
Yeah. Abacus's data collected roughly over the same period of time, maybe a day or two earlier.
No.
And of course, there's wild variation. I think Abacus shows the Liberals in the lead in British Columbia.
Yeah, I found that
right. And Frank is showing the Liberals in a poor shape in British Columbia. But again, we're dealing with unreliable sample sizes. But at a minimum, what can we conclude? We can conclude that the Liberal slide appears to have arrested at around 30 points and hung in competitive in Ontario, likely somewhat ahead, probably not as far ahead as they need to be. Certainly not if we're still talking about majority. If we're talking about just winning a plurality, they're probably okay right now on these numbers. Any reaction, folks?
Nah, I'm listen, I'm like everyone else. I'm just going to watch the polls now. And that's pretty much about it. I don't think anything significant. If every day there seems to be one outlier poll, like, is this significant? And is this not? Like, I just think that I'm going to pay very little attention to the polls, good or bad, for the next week or so.
Not me. I live and die by them. I'm like, now that I hear things are stabilizing for the Liberals, it's like, Mary, don't take the kids to the orphanage. We might be able to hang on. Jenni will be thrilled because I'm going to indulge in gross over analysis immediately. I think the numbers in Ontario, look, let me put it this way. Since I chose to believe the numbers when I disliked what they were showing, I'm going to choose to believe them now that I prefer what they're showing as a Liberal. And I just have to believe that it's not a coincidence that we see these arguments with these protesters. We see a rising focus on issues like passports. I don't think those things are coincident. I do think that's a cleavage that works well for Trudeau. I think that's a cleavage that shifts the debate into ground that's more secure for him. And, as the old saying goes, I mean, we joke about these clowns on the front of the newspaper and so forth, but, pick your enemies well and pick your friends well and pick your enemies better. And I think these guys help him by providing him with just the kind of enemy that makes him look sympathetic. So whether that's sustaining, I don't know. But Ford today, when he's flip-flopping around like a smallmouth bass in the bottom of a boat on vaccine passports, I think that could give Trudeau another potential opportunity to talk about this issue.
Well, I feel exactly the same way on all of those issues as we did yesterday. So are we going to get in a time machine and do yesterday's show again? Or are we going to talk about
damn right we are. We're going to disagree about this as long as these podcasts last, because I think this is going to be the defining issue of the campaign. I think I've got data to back up my claim, Jenni, and I'm going to keep beating on this goddamn drum. We'll see how today unfolds. It'll be interesting now he's back in Ontario. Whether protesters show up, it'll be interesting to see whether he brings Ford into it. If, because the reports are the Ford had a vaccine passport, it went to cabinet, and then he pulled it. Or he pulled it before he went to cabinet. I'm not sure what the story is anyway. I don't know. It's a Fred Flintstone fucking government that Ford's running down there anyway. And I don't understand why they couldn't come to a point of view on this.
Jenni knows that better than anybody. Jenni knows that better than anybody.
Man.
We're in the thick of this election, which means 99.999% of you Herle-Burleites are getting your fix of news and digital information with more alacrity than ever. I mean, if we're 10 minutes late getting the curse up, my phone starts pinging with your increasingly desperate texts and tweets. Guys, it makes me feel warm all over. Not every Canadian can afford that kind of digital access, though. Our presenting sponsor, Telus, knows it, and they're committed to making the situation better, which is why in 2020, Telus expanded the reach of their Mobility for Good program and launched Telus Mobility for Good for seniors. It provides seniors who receive the Guaranteed Income Supplement access to discounted devices and subsidized mobility rate plans, so they can stay connected to loved ones, important healthcare tools and information, and just to be entertained by and share the stuff the internet provides. Specifically, Telus Mobility for Good for seniors is a discounted refurbished smartphone, unlimited talk and text, and 3 gigabytes of data for only $25 a month. It's no small gesture. Across Canada, 2.2 million seniors are eligible for the program. And it's more than the dollars and cents of it. The heart of this is about really connecting. Access to digital technology and what it provides has been proven to help seniors fight feelings of isolation, contributing to their mental well-being. Nothing beats being there in person, but suddenly friends and family aren't miles away, they're just a couple of clicks away. I don't have to tell you how important that was during lockdown. You can learn more about it all at telus.com/connectingcanada. Kind of a nothing day yesterday, right? I mean, I don't know what O'Toole did animal welfare, and Trudeau went up to Equality. And did a couple of Indigenous announcements. Neither of those events likely to be high impact on the campaign. I have to say, I was watching regular TV last night for a change, and the NDP were just pummeling Trudeau on advertising. about
What's regular TV for you, David? Just out of interest. Are you watching CSI or what's regular TV?
You're not going to do this to Terry, are you, on the show?
Oh, all right. I'll abandon it. All right, I'll drop it.
Right.
Okay.
Right. Terry has some vices that probably shouldn't get mentioned in terms of reality
Well,
TV.
don't say that. Then people will imagine much worse than the truth. It's a reality TV type thing. It's not.
It's a
like
reality
Jesus.
TV. It's a reality TV show, and I don't even know what the exact name of it was because I only perked up when I saw the attack ads come on TV. But the NDP are unremittingly negative, and it's quite interesting to see them do that. So what do people do now?
Well, can I ask
what do you do now? What's that? Go ahead, Scott.
I just want to throw out one thought about
the reins of this thing.
Well, I just want to throw out one thought. It's kind of half phrased as a question to both of you, particularly you, David. You say that nothing happened yesterday, and Jenny and I were like, WhatsApping back and forth all day long, like giggling like we were in grade 7 and waiting for our spare period to come by. We were giggling about the animal welfare, right? We will protect your animals.
Softening policy.
Right. We will protect your pets and the people who love them. Oh, thank God. Let's get that guy in office right away. But I was listening to your focus groups. Oh, David, like I was listening to the groups. You've got your third week in a row. Well, I'm a very loyal customer and friend, as you know. And I was struck by, when you were really forcing people to talk about O'Toole, they were pretty persistently. I mean, they're saying they're paying no attention. They're saying that they're not consuming stuff. They say they don't believe half of what they read and none of what they hear. But, they consistently were saying, well, I think, O'Toole looks like he's taking his party to the center. And I think, we'll see, but I think he seems more moderate. I think he seems. And so they've gotten a less threatening impression of him for sure. And I just wonder the goofy kinds of things that stick into people's would stick on people's bulletin boards when you're doing elections. I just wonder if this pet thing, do you think you're going to hear it in next week's group is what I guess I'm wondering. Are you going to go, so what happened last week? And people are going to go, I like that pet thing. I love dogs too. And it reinforces this guy's not scary. This guy's cool. This guy's okay. Or am I overanalyzing again?
I didn't think it was a useless thing, to be honest. I think it's not a policy that makes any difference whatsoever in terms of votes, but I think it's an inherently softening thing to identify yourself with pets. I mean, people draw conclusions about people who don't like pets, who hate dogs or something like that, and so it's a. I thought it was a humanizing, softening thing to do, but I'm not going to overestimate its importance. But it is the kind of thing that might attract some attention. But what
Jenny,
do you do?
Didn't you tell us his dog's name is Wexford, Jenny?
It's Wexford, yeah.
Isn't that like Lord Salisbury's first lieutenant?
It's a county in Ireland. Before Wexford, Aaron and Rebecca had a dog called Wicklow for years and years, and after Wicklow had to be after Wicklow passed away, they got about 6 months later they got Wexford.
Are you feeling better now, you fucking asshole? I mean, Jesus. It's a nice story.
Yeah, I guess. Doesn't sound working man, common names is. I don't know. Anyway, whatever. I'll drop it. But Wexford, County Carroll. I don't know. It's not. It's not Toby.
Does anybody want to?
All right. Sorry. I'll shut up. I might be taking us down a rabbit hole, eh?
It's possible. It's possible. I was kind of interested. I didn't know if you guys were in what anybody might do right now. If you were sitting around, if you're the conservatives sitting around looking at what appears to have been 2 weeks of momentum that may now have been arrested and perhaps started to roll back, what do you do? Tell you what I'll do.
Well, go ahead, David.
Yeah, I'll tell you what I would do. I would take a gamble at this point because I think they need to take a gamble. They need to get lucky on a couple of things in order to pull this thing off. I think that their numbers in Western Canada are strong enough. If the BC numbers that I've been looking at are correct, I would throw the whole fight into Ontario right now. I would rejig my advertising to take my weights away from other regions of the country, all other regions of the country, and put it into Ontario, lighten my weights everywhere, put it into Ontario. I would rejig my tour and my announcement plan for Ontario, and I would fight it out in Ontario right now. And because they need Ontario to win, and winning Ontario will help them do better in Quebec. They've got a significantly better chance of drawing votes in Quebec at the end of the day if it looks like they're competitive to win an election, especially if it looks like they're going to win an election. And that all rests on Ontario. So this is the time to roll the dice and bet big if you're O'Toole, I think, and have this fight in Ontario and try to win it right now.
Yeah, I don't disagree with that. I that's it seems to make sense. They've we kind of talked about this yesterday. This is now both campaigns have to decide what direction. It's not just tour where you go and where you do your ads, but what your messaging is. So the campaigns are going out and they're doing their regular messages. Those things don't get covered. Like they never have, unless it's a really big announcement. The media are going to cover other stuff. So that's why this is the time when you would expect both campaigns to go on the attack. Trudeau and his team have never really gone on the attack. They didn't in 15, they didn't in 19. There really wasn't a lot of negative stuff brought on by the by the Tories. Like Justin Trudeau won blackface and 3 weeks later he was elected leader. So I would not go down the personal road attacks. So even his motive based attacks, I think I would go away from he's just doing this to get a majority and he doesn't care about you. It's got to be substantive policy stuff because people have decided, even if they don't like him, they've decided that might not be enough to vote for him. He doesn't scare them. Like he invokes very strong emotion among people that dislike him, but those people are they're not in his universe. So I think that if I were the Conservatives, I would go heavy on the economy in Ontario, the affordability, house prices, high levels of debt, which are leading to the inflation and the cost of gas, groceries, messaging. Everybody's
kind of lost the affordability plot right now, hey?
It was the theme of week one. It's not been the theme since. I agree with that. I think that I would run a very 905 kind of campaign for a few days, running into the debate. If I were Aaron O'Toole and the Conservatives, and I would rejig my tour to keep me there and just create some persistence. And I'd also do what we talked about yesterday. I'd try to get some op watch stuff out on the Liberals just to keep them on their back heel, keep them from swinging. Good, best offense, best defense, good offense, all that. But I think that today, I have a very specific suggestion for today, which is going to make Jenny come through the internet and strangle me. I think that Ford has inadvertently handed O'Toole a huge opportunity today. I think that O'Toole has a free shot on passports today, and he should cash it in. And by that I mean, we know that Ford will eventually do a passport. I mean, they invested a lot of pre-sale. They had, people like Brian Lilly in the Sun writing stories saying that a passport was coming. So they moved kind of the official Conservative line is that we were going to do this. And then whatever the reasons are within their internal caucus cabinet dynamics, they've halted that. But there's an inevitability to it. They're going to do passports. So to insulate myself on this issue, if I were O'Toole, I would come out today and say, not provocatively, but clearly, and say, well, I really do hope, I think it makes sense for them to take some time and get that policy right, but I really do hope they come forward with a passport policy. I like what I see in Manitoba with the Conservative Premier. I like what Premier Legault is doing. And although I've said, if he wants to stick his nose in it, although I've said it's up to people have to make their medical choices, there's also consequences for those choices. And I like the idea of that passport, and I hope they come forward. I think if he did that, he might give himself some shielding that would serve him very well for the debates and for what I think is, going to be this coming discussion around passports, mandatory vaccinations and stuff. So I think he's got a free shot today, and I'd take it if I was O'Toole.
So you think he should completely align himself with the Liberals? Because right now, I would say as a conservative, there's not a lot that Aaron is offering to people that fall traditionally into the conservative side. So one of the things that he's doing, he's been very pro-vaccine. Has been from the get-go. He got his vaccination publicly around the same time that Trudeau and Singh got theirs. But 50% of the passport idea is not universally supported. I am very pro vaccine. I am not pro passport. I think that businesses can have the choice whether to let people in. I believe airlines. I believe federally mandated sectors. I'm all for that. A vaccine passport though makes me a bit squeamish. So I know why you would do that, because you just love this topic so much. That you would suggest Aaron O'Toole to beat the Liberal Prime Minister, to show that you have a wedge to him. Let's keep it on passports and not actually go after him on something that you actually have a stronger wedge on, which is where the Canadian economy is headed.
Yep, that's exactly right. Because I think your assessment of the issue and its so
Jenny,
I don't want to. We are reliving.
Wait a second.
No, I'm sorry. We're going to.
Sorry,
okay, well, let's relive the. Why don't we
Can I make the argument? Can I rebut what you said? Because I have an answer to that. I think that it makes perfect sense. If O'Toole wants to be able to place the focus and shift the focus on affordability and keep it on affordability in the economy, he's going to have a come to Jesus moment on his vulnerabilities around the vaccine passport, around vaccinations. You may not like it. You may not agree with the issue. I think the majority of opinion is there. I think it's only going to harden as we get to the return to school. And I think that he needs to inoculate himself on this issue. And this is a perfect opportunity to do so. And when you say so, I think he should campaign more like a Liberal. I say it's been doing pretty well for him so far. You bet.
Well, okay. That's
Can I talk now? Is there any chance?
Conservatives do not win elections when they try to out-liberal the Liberals. There is absolutely no evidence of that. And if Aaron heads down that road, he is giving the Liberal Conservative swing vote, the 905. There's no reason to to vote. Like, why will we throw out the devil we know to try a guy if their policies are going to be the same?
Opposition to passports is not the calling card you want to differentiate yourself from the Prime Minister, I don't think, at this time. But anyway, I'm sorry, David, I'll shut up.
Okay. Thanks. So, an old friend of mine who's a bit of a cycling fanatic took his bike in for repairs and got a shock. The bike store told him he needed a chain and some brake pads, and that the store would be happy to do the installation if he could just track down the parts himself. The bike shop, you see, was out of stock or running low on just about everything. Actually, the bike shop had hardly any bikes. My friend quickly found out it was the same story at other shops. Everybody's out of stock, everywhere. The fact is, bikes and bike parts these days come from China or Southeast Asia, along with most of the other consumer goods we rely on. And right now, the supply chains overseas are choked and broken. Exporters are desperately bidding on any ship container space available, and we all know what that's doing to prices. Well, our sponsor, CN, has a suggestion for our governments in North America. Encourage more production in Canada, the US, and Mexico, and shorten those supply lines. CN's vision is a continent of connected economies, served by trains that move goods reliably and safely and seamlessly. Overseas, supply chains are fragile. They can be disrupted by a pandemic, which is the case right now, or by politics or conflict. A brand new, updated trade treaty links Canada, the US, and Mexico. And CN has proposed a merger with Kansas City Southern, an American railway whose network reaches all the way to Mexico City and ports on both Mexican coasts. If that is approved, and CN is confident it will be, CN will connect Canada's Atlantic and Pacific coasts, run down past Chicago, through the American heartland to the Gulf, and then onward into Mexico. Which means CN is actually in the process of enabling shorter, stronger, non-fragile supply chains. I mean, does anyone at this stage think that's not a good thing? I thought, Jenny, you made me think of something interesting in your point, which is how important, how much more do conservative voters need than the opportunity to beat Trudeau. So how much does O'Toole's competitiveness allow him to be less conservative than voters might like?
Well, I just don't think it's enough. I think that the time for change numbers leading into 2019, to 2019 was essentially the same. There are people that are sick of Trudeau, but with no substantive reason for people to vote for Erin O'Toole, they will go to other places. Like I think there's a reason why you're seeing the PPC numbers in Ontario continually start to rise, and that's the point I would have is there are very substantive issues that people care about, and that is what I think they should be focused on in terms of this campaign. I think it go down a very giant rabbit hole to use Scott's term, in terms of trying to turn this into an election about COVID and vaccines and what have you.
Great. Excellent. Who's got a curse to end off the day?
How about fuck? All right, I got one. Jenny's going to love it. My curse is to Doug Ford. And my curse is, if you're going to halt this vaccine passport thing, you better come back and move fast. Because I do think, whether people like Jenny agree with me or not, I think that it creates a moment in this campaign. And I think that people are going to move into that vacuum from the federal side. I think you're going to see Trudeau talk about it. O'Toole may be forced to talk about it. And if you're Doug Ford, you've done a good job of keeping yourself out of this federal election. And I think you probably just put yourself in it. And that's not smart if you want to see your federal cousins win.
There you go. Jenny?
Well, my curse would be to the Conservative campaign. It's time to get off kind of the internal squabbles. And Aaron, the first three questions he took yesterday were on candidate issues, which was completely in game. This is the part of the campaign where we do this stuff. But what I would urge them to is to not make answers that are short term without thinking them through. So yesterday, Aaron said he was asked about free votes, and he goes, "You campaigned on free votes, but now you're saying that anyone elected must agree with 100% of what is in your policy, or they won't sit in caucus." So the question I would say, okay, then, are we going to be a caucus? We were the only ones for the last two elections, after the last two elections, that signed on to Mike Chong's Reform Act. Under the Reform Act, a leader cannot remove someone from caucus. When Derek Sloan was removed from caucus, there was a vote. And so I just think this is a rabbit hole where we just I just feel it's going to end up turning into something that shouldn't. So I would say, just stop throwing things out if it's not actually part of your narrative, to just get through the day. Because Aaron's issue is going to be his credibility in terms of what he says one day as opposed to the next, based on the fact that he ran on a leadership campaign a year ago and is running on a completely separate one.
Excellent. Thank you. My curse is just that I know how Liberals are feeling in the war room and in the campaign office and on the tour today. I know that sense of relief that the slide has stopped and the numbers have started to bounce back. They'll have wind in their sails today and feel good. Enjoy it, folks. All right, everybody. Thank you for listening again this morning. I want to thank you to our presenting sponsor, Telus, and to CN. Thank you to Politico and Nick Taylor-Vasey for being here and being in good cheer. And thank you to Frank Graves and EKOS for their data, as always, this morning. Frank, get up and read your late night tweets and then expand on it a little bit here in the show. Anyway, thank you very much, and we'll see you all tomorrow morning. Take care.